Thanks, Christy. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me this morning. I hope everyone's having a great day so far. I really appreciate you joining me today. I know you're very busy, and I've got a lot of exciting information to share with you about Gate Plus. So let's get started. So here's our agenda for today. We are going to start out with an overview of Gate Plus and talk a little bit about planning and scheduling. We'll talk about the research behind the program. We'll look at the materials that are included and how you can use them with your students. And we'll also, of course, go into the instructional activities and assessments that are built into the program. So let's get started with our overview. GATE is an acronym for Group and Tutoring Addition. GATE Plus is an update of our former program called GATE, and it's implemented through teacher-directed instruction in small groups or for an entire class of beginning readers. GATE Plus uses a combination of teacher-directed, explicit, systematic activities to teach phonemic awareness and phonics and word recognition skills. It helps improve your students' fluency, and it supports comprehension and vocabulary to accelerate the reading achievement of beginning and struggling readers. Well, let's talk about each of these areas, starting with phonemic awareness. So students are going to develop their phonemic awareness in GATE Plus by listening for specific sounds and syllables in words, segmenting words, and learning how to blend words and syllables to make words. Next, they'll develop phonics skills by strengthening their proficiency with letter sounds and letter combinations, and by learning to decode 1 and 2 syllable words. Students are also going to develop their fluency in reading words and sentences using Read Naturally's research-proven strategy. They'll also learn to read and spell regular and irregular high-frequency words with automaticity, as well as learning to spell short words with each lesson's featured phonics pattern. Students will develop their vocabulary as they read nonfiction stories that define individual words and concepts like fog, mimes, and glaciers. And GATE Plus also includes different components that support reading comprehension, with activities like making predictions, answering questions, and writing sentences about what students remember from the stories. So there's a lot built into GATE Plus to develop all of these different essential reading skills. GATE Plus was developed for beginning readers or for struggling readers, and it's intended to be presented by the teacher to intervention groups of up to 6 students with similar skills or needs, or with a classroom of beginning readers in kindergarten or first grade. GATE Plus can be used as a precursor to Read Naturally Live or Encore, where students are going to work more independently. So it's not included in the Read Live license. It's a separate program from Read Live. GATE Plus lessons should be scheduled daily, and one full lesson is going to take about 4 30-minute reading periods or 5 20-minute reading periods. Those first few lessons may take a little bit longer because, of course, your students will need time to learn the behaviors they need to do in each lesson. And the lessons are set up so that you and your students can complete as many parts of the lesson during a single reading period as possible, and then continue the lesson in subsequent periods until the lesson is complete. And if you've finished a lesson early in your reading time, you can go ahead and start the next one right when you're finished, if there's time remaining. GATE Plus can be used in a variety of different settings. For example, your regular classroom. If you have a whole class of beginning readers, you can use it with all of your students. You can also use it in an intervention or resource room for special education students or Tier 2 or Tier 3 students. We've also seen it used in before or after school programs for students that need that additional support. And if you are tutoring students individually or in small groups, it's great for that as well. And remember, I know we just started the school year, but if you are looking for something for summer school, Gate Plus is also great for that. Gate Plus is available in 3 levels, and each level has 24 lessons. Level 0.8 is for early to mid first grade level students, and it focuses on short vowels. Level 1.3 is mid first grade level, and it focuses mostly on long vowels. And then level 1.8 is late first grade to early second grade level, and it focuses on blends and digraphs, inflected endings, and 2-syllable words. Regular and irregular high frequency words are emphasized in each lesson at all the levels. Here's a table that can help you determine the appropriate level of Gate Plus for your students. Level 0.8 is great for students who know the letters of the alphabet, have some knowledge of letter sounds, and can recognize at least 15 to 20 written words. Remember, it focuses on short vowel words. In Gate Plus, the teacher modeling and repeated reading parts of our Read Naturally strategy give your students scaffolding that enables them to be successful when they're reading connected text. Students who read at an early to mid first grade level can work in Gate Plus level 1.3 with a focus on long vowel words. And students who work at a mid to late first grade level can work in Gate Plus level 1.8 with a focus on blends, digraphs, inflected endings, and 2-syllable words. Becoming familiar with the text difficulty of the Gate Plus stories and the skills in each lesson will help you select the appropriate level for your students. The stories within each level have similar text complexity. Read Naturally uses lexile measures and Space and Fry readability formulas to determine the level of each story. Of course, at each successive level, the stories are going to be longer and more complex. So it's important to group your students with similar needs together to work in this program. Here's a broad scope and sequence that shows the skills taught in Gate Plus. And there's a full page of this chart on page 6 of your handout. Let's zoom in for a closer look. You can see here the skill areas that Gate Plus covers. And depending on the level up here across the top, that skill may be taught, reviewed, or applied. Notice that spelling, high frequency words, fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary are addressed in each lesson at all different levels. Now let's talk about the research behind Gate Plus. Gate Plus incorporates Read Naturally's research-proven strategy. We know that the combination of teacher modeling, repeated reading, and progress monitoring can help your students improve their reading. And those strategies are also just good instructional strategies that have a lot of different applications in your classroom. Teacher modeling in Gate Plus happens as the student actively reads along with their teacher on each story. They're going to imitate the teacher's phrasing and intonation, and it also teaches word recognition. Next is repeated reading, which is a form of mastery learning. This is where students are going to repeatedly read the same words in the context of the story so that they begin to know them and they're able to identify them in subsequent texts. And finally, progress monitoring. This is our motivational tool to give our students a specific goal to work toward. And then they're going to practice during 1-minute timed readings of the same story multiple times, and then see their improvement on their graph each time. Here's a research tool for you if you're interested in learning more about implementing instruction in the 4 areas of reading instruction called the foundational reading skills. We've got print concepts, phonological awareness, phonics, and word recognition and fluency all addressed in this white paper. And the paper also explains how programs like Gate Plus can support teachers as you work with beginning and developing readers. And there will be a link to in the chat for this paper as well. Now let's take a look at the materials you need to teach Gate Plus. To set up Gate Plus, you'll need to prepare your materials and select your setting. Let's talk about the materials first. Gate Plus is a scripted program. So there's a flip book with the teacher's script on one side and the student-facing materials on the other side. Gate Plus also comes with a USB drive that contains PowerPoint slides and additional materials for teachers. Here's an example of our student booklet that can be printed from the USB drive that you receive in your packet with your materials, and then you fold it in half, and each student would have their own student booklet. You can see here the first page of the booklet has our sound boxes for a phonemic awareness activity for your students. And then there's also a word list activity, and we'll get deeper into those activities in a little bit. And here's an example of the student's story record sheet. So students have a record sheet for stories and for word lists, and they love to see the graphs showing their progress. And it's also really good documentation for you when you're talking to parents or other teachers about your students' progress. So in addition to the materials included with the program, it's a good idea to have a couple of other things for your students to use as well. You'll need a digital timer. You can always use your phone to time your students while they're reading the story. And you'll only need one for your group because you're going to control the timer in Gate Plus. You'll also need red or blue pencils or crayons so that students can mark their graphs as they're working through the program. And then it's helpful for each student to have a folder for their materials. We always have those students that struggle with keeping things organized, so these folders are really helpful. The USB drive also contains support materials, such as crossword puzzles for each story, word lists for each story, and even bonus word lists for students that might need a little bit of extra challenge in reading words from the story. The crossword puzzles help students become more confident with the vocabulary in the stories. We also have certificates and parent letters that you can send home, as well as comprehension activities to help develop your students' comprehension skills. Now let's talk about the instructional activities and assessments that are built into Gate Plus. Here's a partial list of all the instructional activities that are included. Each lesson has a great amount of activities to work through with your students. The first set of activities promotes phonemic awareness. Specifically, the first one, the ability to recognize the featured sounds in each word. In levels 0.8 and 1.3, students are going to listen for the vowel sounds. Then in level 1.8, they'll listen for blends and digraphs, inflected endings. Phonemic awareness is developed in the students as the teacher tells them the sound of the featured letter and then asks them to repeat that sound. Then the teacher is going to say several words that may or may not contain that sound. This requires the students to listen very carefully and determine whether each word has the featured sound in it. The next activity, blend sounds into words, also supports phonemic awareness. In particular, the ability to recognize words made by sounds or word parts blended together. So the teacher is going to slowly blend letter sounds or word parts together to make a word, while the students listen carefully to determine what word the students or the teacher said. And then they say that word in unison. Segmenting words into sounds is kind of the opposite of blending words, where the teacher will say a whole word and the students will mark the number of sounds that they hear in the word in their sound boxes in their booklet. Next, students are going to work on improving their phonics skills through the direct instruction of the sounds of letters. The teacher is going to point to each letter or letter combination in the flipbook and tell the student the name and sound of the letter. Then the students repeat that sound. They'll do this step with teacher support at first, by repeating after the teacher, kind of that I do, we do, you do steps. Students eventually will be able to say the sound of each letter or letter combination without teacher modeling. Next, students will continue to develop phonics and word recognition skills by decoding phonetically regular words containing the featured sounds. We call these words sound out words because they're completely decodable. Sound out words will be at the top of the flipbook here in black type. Some of these words will also be high frequency words. Next, students will be taught a strategy for learning phonetically irregular high frequency words. They'll be taught the regular parts of the word that they can sound out, and then the irregular parts that they need to learn by heart. And we call these spell out words because they can't completely decode them by sounding them out. And those will be in red in your flipbook. Finally, the read words down and across activity has students practicing lists of words with the featured phonics patterns in the lesson. They start by reading down the columns, and then they read across the rows. This allows students to build automaticity in decoding the words. Students have a copy of this word list in their student booklet as well. But first, we want them to do it with the teacher. So let's do a little bit of a review to see how the activities we just talked about support students' reading development. Remember the components of reading instruction that the GATE Plus program incorporates. Some of them are listed here on the slide. We've got phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, and comprehension. So which of these components does the listen for vowel sounds in words and blend sounds into words support? If you said phonemic awareness, you're right. Those two activities are going to help improve your students' phonemic awareness. All right, next question. Practice letter sounds, decode sound out words, and read spell out words support which component of reading instruction? If you said phonics, you're correct. Let's take a look at some more of the instructional activities in GATE Plus. Starting with read decodable sentences. This is when students are going to read decodable sentences made up of the words and sounds they learned in the current and previous lessons. This step gives students practice reading connected text with those featured phonics patterns. And we've got our high frequency or spell out words in red type in those sentences. Next, the spelling step. This is when students will write spell out words and sound out words from the story when the teacher dictates them. This step develops phonemic awareness. It also gives students practice writing short words with the featured phonics patterns and irregular high frequency words. And of course, it's going to improve their spelling skills or encoding. Stories in GATE Plus are all authentic text. And students are going to be working on developing their comprehension skills, starting off with making a prediction about the story based on the key words that are here in this box and the picture that's included with the story. So this pre-reading activity prepares the students to read the story and reminds them that they're reading for information. The teacher and students decide on a prediction together, using the picture, the title, and the key words to help them. Then the teacher will write their prediction sentence on the whiteboard or on a piece of white paper, depending on the situation. And when students are ready, they can write their own predictions. And there is a graphic organizer in the digital downloads to help with that. Next, the students will work on improving their fluency skills. Before they read the story with the teacher or practice it, we start them off with a cold reading of the story, which is where we time them for 1 minute. Each student will read individually, aloud, quietly, as the teacher times the group. We want to make sure they're not reading in unison. Sometimes they like to do that. And the teacher will listen to one student read while the other students read quietly out loud to themselves. and they need to underline the words in the story that they don't know. So this cold reading sets the baseline for measuring improvement and monitoring progress. Students will record and graph their individual cold timing scores in blue on their fluency graphs. With that visual representation of the timing scores for each story, they'll be able to see their progress as they continue through the program. Next, students continue working on fluency as they complete the read-along step with the teacher. This is the teacher modeling step. We're going to be supporting our students as they learn new words, confirm difficult words, and master sight words. This activity with the teacher reading aloud models appropriate phrasing and expression for the students. First, the teacher and students will read the story out loud from the student-facing pages in the flipbook or from the PowerPoint. The teacher needs to be sure to read slowly enough so that the students can actually read along, pointing to each word and pausing to decode words with the students. During the second read along, students will read quietly aloud from their own booklets as they point and listen to each word. The teacher will still be reading along with them during this step, but we're gradually making them be more independent. Students will continue reading along as many times as the teacher feels are necessary. Most teachers do this step at least 3 times. Next, students continue working to improve their fluency as the teacher times the group for 1 minute. She listens to one student read while the other students quietly read aloud independently. And she'll continue doing this each time listening to a different student. This process will continue for 4 to 6 timings. After that final timing, students will mark their graphs in red to record their final timing score. And this gives them the opportunity again to monitor their progress. Next, students will answer questions about the story. This activity encourages the students to remember what they've read, and it reminds them that they're reading for meaning. It also continues to support phonics development by giving students an opportunity to write words with the featured phonics patterns. It also looks at their comprehension of the story. And you can do this step at first as a group and then gradually allow students to do it more independently. There is an optional step, and you can see it at the bottom here, for students to write a sentence about the story. You might want to do this at first as a group and then gradually allow students to do it on their own as they become more competent. And we call it an optional activity because it may require more time than you have for the lessons, especially for students that need a lot of additional practice with the story. All right, this review, we're going to switch it up a little bit. So this time I'll give you the answer and you give me the question, like in Jeopardy. So the answer is, this GATE Plus activity supports student comprehension. It's a pre-reading activity that prepares the students to read the story. And the question is, what is? Make a prediction. Great job. Let's try another one. This is a multiple choice one. The read the word list step and the spelling step support which component of reading instruction? If you said phonics, you're correct. Here's another Jeopardy question. The answer is, these GATE Plus activities support fluency development. Together, they incorporate Read Naturally's research-proven strategy of teacher modeling, repeated reading, and progress monitoring. And there are a few answers for this one. What are cold timing, read along with the teacher, and practice and pass the story? These all support your students' fluency development. Here's another multiple choice question. Answer the questions supports which component of reading instruction? If you said comprehension, you are correct. Great job, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about the assessments that you want to use to determine your students' progress in GATE+. When you're using GATE+ to support your beginning readers, including those students in a response to intervention or MTSS model, it's important to conduct periodic diagnostic phonics assessments or phonics skills checklists. One example is the Quick Phonics Screener, which is a diagnostic phonics assessment that you can use to help confirm that your students working in GATE+ are mastering phonics skills as they move through the program. So this information will help you decide if you need to make adjustments to student instruction. It will also help you determine when a student no longer needs the support of GATE+ or is ready to move on to Read Naturally Live. There are several suggestions for adjusting GATE+ instruction available in the teacher's manual for GATE+. Another type of assessment are the GATE+ progress checks. The teacher is going to administer these after each set of 3 to 5 lessons to confirm mastery of the letters and sounds that have been taught. Students will record their results on the progress checks on a record sheet. And then the teacher directions and assessments are also found on the USB drive included in your GATE+ package. Finally, the GATE+ high frequency word assessment is a cumulative assessment that can be used to assess each student's progress in mastering the high frequency words explicitly taught in each level of the program. This assessment is also on your USB drive. This is another video of one of our expert teachers, Michelle Brenner, using the program with a group of students.
GATE+ makes it really easy for teachers to teach phonics to their students. My name is Michelle Brenner, and I have over 30 years of teaching elementary school, and I spent the last 20 years specifically working as a reading interventionist with students who needed additional support to become better readers. We know the science of reading is all about good instructional practices based on scientific evidence of what works with students. These practices are built into each lesson of GATE+, so students can master phonics both effectively and efficiently. All of the lessons in GATE+ are scripted with easy-to-follow instructional routines, which is perfect for teachers who need to teach phonics but don't quite know the best way to go about it. Every activity in GATE+ incorporates effective instructional practices, things such as segmenting and blending to build phonemic awareness, explicit and systematic instruction in phonics decoding and encoding, connected text reading and decodable sentences, practice reading stories, teacher modeling, repeated reading and progress monitoring to build fluency, building background knowledge with a variety of high-interest nonfiction stories, increasing students' vocabulary through the use of keywords and definitions, and improving comprehension with activities such as making predictions and answering a variety of comprehension questions. The GATE+ program makes it so easy for teachers to differentiate instruction to meet their students' needs. Progress checks and student record sheets motivate students and allow teachers to measure progress. GATE+ can be used as a small group instructional activity or with larger groups of students who have similar phonics needs. A flipbook with student-facing lessons and a teacher-facing script, as well as an optional PowerPoint presentation for each lesson, makes it easy to customize this program for small or large groups. GATE+ was developed by reading teachers, and scientific research is central to every aspect of the program. Teachers are going to love GATE+ because it makes teaching phonics so easy, and the results are fantastic.
I think it's always so helpful to see a program in action. So I'm really glad you guys are able to see that. So today we've talked about an overview of GATE+, including the research behind it. We've looked at some of the materials that are included and the instructional activities and assessments that are built into the program. I hope you found today's presentation helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our website. Our informational email is right here, or you can call us and someone will actually answer the phone when you call.
Thank you, Diana. I just want to remind everyone that we'll be sending out follow-up emails with links to the webinar recording and handouts in about 24 hours, and please feel free to share that with your colleagues. Also, if you could please respond to survey questions that will appear on your screen after the webinar to help us improve the educational experience for all of you and our future webinars. And please follow us on your favorite social media platform. Thanks so much for joining us.